Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel Copycat Ram. This is Ram and today I have brought another video for you. In this video we are going to learn about DOM manipulation. So generally let us first understand what is DOM. DOM is nothing but it is a collection of all HTML elements through which you create a beautiful web page. So everything inside the HTML like body, h1, h2, p, div, section, and each and every element in the HTML denotes to a DOM. Actually, it happens that whenever a web browser renders the HTML things on the web page, before rendering it actually converts to the objects because browser understand them in the terms of objects. That's why we refer them as a DOM. So manipulation is nothing but changing the things or the content of the HTML dynamically. In this video I am going to show you two ways that how you can target an element. So every manipulation happens over here is done by the target. First you have to target the element and then you need to make the changes as you want. So here I am going to show you two targeting ways. The first one is the getElementById and the second one will be the getElementByClassName. In the JavaScript there is more way to target an element, but if you can understand these two you can apply any kind of methods. So let us first begin with the getElementById. So by the name you can guess that this is going to only work with the ID. So let us move to the HTML file. So right now in the HTML you can see here is one h1 within the body where I have written some text. So to use the getElementById function we need an ID to the element. So what I am going to do here, I am going to add ID to this element and I am giving to it name a title. Now within the index.js what I am going to do, I am going to target that element. So to target that element you need to write document dot get element by id and you here need to pass one argument and that argument will be the id of the element. So what id we had given, the id was title. So let me store it to a variable so that we can console log and we can see the output. So what I'm going to do here, I am taking title as a const and I am storing the target value. And now let us console log and see the output. Console log title. Save, refresh. So in the console we can see the HTML that we have targeted. Now let us assume that what happened if you forget to put an argument to the getElementById. So what will happen? So let me save and refresh. So in that case you will get an error within the console that will say that the first argument is required. So it is always required to pass an argument to the getElementById. Now what will happen if you have passed an argument but that ID does not exist in the whole web page? So for the example, now let me remove this and let me write here the demo. And we know that within the HTML there is no such ID exists. So what will happen in that case? So let us check, save and refresh. In that case it will return null. So there are two things that you always need to keep in your mind. The first thing is that if you forget to give an argument to the getElementById, then it will throw an error. And if anyhow it does not find any such ID within your document, then it will return null. So let me give here my original ID that we have in the document, and now again in our console we have the h1 element. So what we can do further with this? We can do many things. Like first, right now in the console we have the whole h1 elements within our console. Right now within the console we have whole h1, but I want only the text content that is written within the h1. So for that we have a special properties that is called text content. Now let me save and refresh. So right now you have the text inside the console, not the tag. So using the text content, you can fetch or you can get the content that has been written within an element. Now let's suppose that you want to change the content or you want to replace the existing content. So how you can do this? You can use the same properties. Yes. So let me do the title dot text content. If you just only use the properties and if you do not assign it anything, then it will show you the output. It will get the content from the element. And here if you pass anything like new value, now let me save and refresh. Now you will see that on the page we have the new. Now if you check the HTML, we already have DOM manipulation text, but by the JavaScript what we have done on the page load, we have replaced the content. So for better understanding, what I am going to do here, I am going to add a button and we will check each properties on button click so that we can understand that how it was before and now how it is after the changing. So in this way we will be able to understand very easily. So what I am going to do here, I am going to pass a button and I am giving it a text as click and giving an ID button click. And here what I'm going to do this, I'm going to target it and then going to add a event listener, and that will be on every click I will call a function. That's it. So till now what we have done, we have already targeted the title element, that is the h1 element. Now what I want to do, on the click I want to replace the content inside the h1. Let me here set title dot text content. So if you do not assign, then it will fetch the data. Now if you assign any value to this, then it's going to replace that content where you have targeted. So what I am going to do here, I am going to write copy cat run. So let's save. Now if I refresh, so right now on the screen you can see that we have the DOM manipulation text on our browser. Now if you inspect, then you'll find that this was within the h1 with the ID of the title and it have the content. Now if as soon as I will click on this, watch carefully what happened over here. So if I click, now you can see that the title has been replaced with the new content, and you can see that it still have the h1 tag, it still have the same ID, only the content has been replaced. So that's how you can get the data and you can replace the data. In the same way, we have another properties, that is inner HTML. Okay, so what inner HTML do? So to understand that, let me make some changes over here. So inside the h1 here I am going to add a span, and here I am going to write some other text, and I am going to console log inner HTML. Now see what happened if I click on the button. Now you can see that we have the text as well as it have returned the HTML attribute that was inside the h1. So what we have done, we have targeted the element and here we have called the inner HTML properties. So inner HTML, what it does, it return all the content including the tag, including the HTML tag that it's find within the children. It's going to return whole thing. That's why it is named as the inner HTML. Now let us also see the differences. Now what I'm going to do, at the top I'm going to call text content, and let's see what output it's going to show. Now if I click, now for the first one you can see that it have only returned the text like DOM manipulation YouTube, but if you check the HTML, then you'll find that the YouTube was written within the span tag, but text content has ignored all the HTML tag, whereas inner HTML have returned with exact HTML tag and the content. So this is the major difference between the text content and the inner HTML. If you want to set new HTML within the h1, the process is the same. You have to just call the inner HTML and you have to assign it with the new tag or the new value. Like already we have span within the h1. So what I want to do now, I want to put p tag within the h1, and here is the hello p. So let me save, refresh. Now let us first inspect it. So right now we have h1, some text, and then a span. Now if I click on this, what will happen? Now you can see that the whole content including the tag has been replaced. Now we have p tag inside the h1 with the new content. So this is how text content and inner HTML work, and this is the basic difference between both of them. Also, it may happen that you want to change styling of the DOM. So how will you approach this? So to change the styling things within the DOM, in the JavaScript there is a special properties that is called style. So first you have to target the element, then you have to use the style properties, and to this style properties again we have to use the CSS properties, but in a unique way. Let's suppose that you want to increase the font size of the h1. So if it was CSS, how will you do this? You have to just write the font hyphen size and with a new value. The same thing will happen over here, but in the camel case way. Okay, so here we write in the camel case because hyphen is not allowed as a properties of the style in the JavaScript. So everything that already exist in the form of the hyphen in the CSS, you have to use that property in the JavaScript in the camel case form. So here you have to just use title.style.font size with the new value. So here I am going to set it at 50 pixel. So let me save, refresh. Now if I click on this, now you can see that the font size of the element have been increased. Also you can see that it have applied the inline CSS. Okay, sorry, inline styling. So here you can see the style attribute. Let me refresh again and you notice that right now we do not have any style attribute to the element. Now as soon as I click here, we have the style attribute to the element with the font size of the 50 pixel. In the same way, if you want to change the color, you just have to write style.color, and here you need to provide the value. Let me save, refresh. Now we have the pinkish text on our browser. So this is how you can change the style or the CSS properties of the DOMs. Now let us assume that you already have declared some CSS within the class name. Now you want to dynamically add or remove that things. So for that let me here create a style, and let me create some styling over here. So here I am going to create h1 class, and here I am going to set font size of 80 pixel, and the color will be red. Okay, as well as here I am going to create another class that we call be underline, and here I am set text decoration underline. So what I want to do, I want to do that if I click on the button, I want to add the h1 class to the element. So how you can do this? So for that, let me first refresh over here. Right now you can see that we do not have any class to the h1 element. So for that, what we can do, for that we have a special properties that is called class list. So class list, to add a new class you have to use the add function, and here you need to pass the argument of, and that argument will be the class name. So let's suppose that I want to add h1. So let me refresh and click. So right now we do not have any class. Now as soon as I click, you can see that we have a class attribute to the element with the h1 class. Now let us understand that, let us assume that it already have a class name to the element, but now you want to remove it on the click. So by default we have the underline to the element because we have applied the underline class. Now I want to remove this. So how you can remove this? Very simple. You just have to use the remove function instead of the add, and you need to here define the class name that you want to remove. Here you need to pass the class name that you want to remove. Refresh. Now as soon as I will click, you will see that the class name has been removed that we here given. So this is how class list add and remove function work. Now let us assume that our h1 have different attribute and we want to fetch the value of that attribute. So how you can do this? So for this kind of purpose we have a special properties function that is called getAttribute. To this getAttribute you need to pass an argument, and that argument will be name of the attribute, the value of what you want on the screen. So for me I want the ID, so let me get the ID, and also let me console so that we can see the output, the console log the element. Now let me refresh. Let us go to console. Now if I click, now you can see that we have the title value in our console, because what we had given the ID equal to title. In the same way, if I want to know the class attribute, so simply just I have to put here class. Now if I refresh and click, then you can see that we have the underline. So this is how we can get the attribute. Now let us assume that you want to put a new attribute to the element. So how you can do this? You can do the same thing just by targeting the element, and for that we have a special properties that is called setAttribute. Here you need to pass two arguments. The first one will be the attribute name. So let's suppose that here I want to put a title attribute to the h1 element with the value of testing attribute. So let me save, refresh. Now if you inspect, then you'll find that right now we have only ID and class and nothing else to the h1 element. Now as soon as I will click, you will find that here is attribute has been added to this, that is title equal to testing attribute. So this is how you can set a new attribute to the element, and if you want you can fetch the value of the attribute. So hopefully now you are able to understand the basic of the DOM manipulation. Now you will be able to replace some content within the element. Now let us read about the class name. Now let's suppose that we have a element with the class name and we want to target them. Here you need to understand one basic thing. We know that within the HTML our ID is always unique. That's why whenever we target with the ID we always get only one element. Now we know that we can use the same class with the multiple element. That means we can have more than one element with the same class. So what will happen if we target an element by the class name? That means there is more chance that we can have more than one element. So this is the major difference between the getElementById and the getElementByClassName. So let us see by the example. So here I have copy pasted it 2 times and they both have the same class name, that is the underline. So let me save. Now what I am going to do here, I am going to target the element by the class name. Okay, so here class element equal to document dot getElementByClassName, and here you have to just pass the class name. So the class name is underline. So let us console log and see what output it going to show. The console log class element. Now if I refresh and let us console, so now you can find that we have something different in our console, that is the HTML collection. And if you carefully look it, then you will find that it somehow look like an array. It is an array but not an actual array. It is a HTML collection. You cannot apply all the array function to this like map, filter, etc. Now if you want to change the style of the only first element, so how you can do this? You can do the same thing just how you target within an array by using its index point. So what I'm going to do, so I want to change the first element of the class list. So I want to first target, so that's why here I am using the 0 index, because we know within array first position start with the 0. So I am targeting here the first element, that's why here I am using the 0 index point. And simple, you just use the properties dot font size equal to whatever you want. So here I have written the 60 pixels. So let me refresh. Now click. Now you can see that the first element have the font size of the 60 pixel. In the same way, now if I want to change the second element, then here I have to pass the second element's position, and here you need to set the properties. Save, refresh and clicks. So first one have the font size of the 60 pixel and second one have the font color of red. So this is how you can manipulate. Now let us assume that you have bunch of HTML collection with the same class name. So how, and you want to make changes to each and every one. So how you can achieve this? So for that you can run a array loop. The simple loop that you can apply over here is the for loop. So let me show you an example. So what I am going to do here, I am going to run a for loop. If I is smaller than class list dot length. Why length? Because you can oversee that we have the access to the length property. So here we can use the length. So if I is smaller than class length, then we have to keep incrementing the I. And now we can target the each element, each HTML collection that we have by its I value, and then here we can just apply the universal styling that you want. So here I want to set them as pink color. So let me save, refresh. Now as soon as I will click, this loop will go through each HTML collections element and it will apply the same thing to everyone. So let me click over here. Sorry, you have to put the style and this CSS property, that is color. Save, refresh. Now we have the pink color to the element. So this is how you can apply the same thing. So right now we have whatever I have teach you, like text content, inner HTML, style, classes, the same thing you can do with the class name, but only the thing is that you have to target it by their index position. Hopefully now you are able to understand how you can target an element and how you can manipulate them. If you really found this video very helpful, please do not forget to like the video. If you have any question, please comment down in the comment section. I will try to explain them in my next video. Thank you for watching.